Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you for hospitality and friendly attitude, which I always enjoy in Timișoara. Both I have to say it's a surprise that I never thought that we are going to speak in English. So, but hopefully it will help everybody to speed and to be effective. And I hope also my guests and especially the public is okay with this situation, which really seems the best in our given conditions. And thirdly, we are at the point of having or being in the moment of conclusions, I think, because a lot of things have been presented these days and put on screen and independently shown as case studies or even identifying the problems or role models, if you like. So my first question before involving the guests into this discussion is, I was wondering to whom are we talking with? Who's in the room? Are you the ones which are expecting for the solutions? Are you the ones which are needing the solutions? Are you the ones which are providing solutions or offering solutions? Or are you the ones which are just curious, wondering if such solutions really exist and are efficient? And I was thinking that maybe, but you may contradict us or add these questions with your answers all over the discussion whenever you feel. Just mention that. But I think that you are mostly interested in models and in the answer of the question, what could be the solution? That's my feeling. So in this situation, but taking advantage on the fact that we have a public administration with us, also in the range of guests and also in the room, I would just propose to all of you here, close to me, to treat this discussion as a business discussion, with all the rules of talking about business. Short, focus, trying to convince your partner that it's worth to step into that business, if you accept this attitude. So we all have, let's say, or let's presume, but I think it's obvious, identify the problem. So we do not speak about the problem because it's there, we know. It's named, it was named. We all know that we have this interest. We have in room, I suppose, people which are connected with this interest. We don't have to convince them that this is a topic. Otherwise, they will be not here on Saturday afternoon in a beautiful fall day in the city of art encounters, isn't it? And thirdly, I really think that we need to get a conclusion or to construct a conclusion. Otherwise, actually, we maybe take a walk. So in these conditions, I would like to ask you initially, in your opinion, how far are we and why on the moment of having a solution from the business point of view of investing in inhabited heritage. Let me dare to ask Iris in the first place, because she's coming from a situation where a lot of things have been done already.
First, I just briefly thank you that you now have to all speak in English. This is mainly because my Romanian is not existent. I'm sorry. Well, who is we? We you defined as everybody who is part of the process in Ukraine, in Romania, in Germany, I don't know, but part of the thinking process, as you say, inhabited heritage as a topic, perhaps. I think we are not very far. I'm sorry to say it, if you're answering so directly. At the same time, I see.
Sorry, you said we are not very far, or is still very far?
No, we are not.
We are not very far.
You said your question was how far are we in the process of.
We are not very far.
Yes. I try to focus a little bit on very small mechanisms in my presentation, how to involve a bigger audience or public. And I think in that small scale it does work, you know, in very small objects, small scale. But talking about bigger incentives and thinking of how it works in Germany, you have, for example, tax advantage as an incentive to invest into heritage. I think it does need a bigger strategy or bigger incentive than this small incremental approach. At the same time, talking about Ukraine, I think it's an important starting point to have projects realized or to have approaches realized so that people don't see it as an abstract idea, what could be done with heritage or what could be done with improving your own surrounding, but they see it as an experience that they lived through themselves. So they succeeded in doing something good for the building or doing something nice. And I think that in that sense, that is an approach that can be easily copied also in other places. It's painstaking because you have so many little groups and so on, but it's needed.
Thank you. So I may stick on your answer and just pointing that you appreciate that this experience in Ukraine can be labeled as successful and substantially improving the situation and approaching to a moment when it will become a, let's say, a critical mass or something which is becomes a habit or a way of doing the things, and it really worked. And let me ask you additionally, what was the time span for such an experience? Eventually, what's the dimension of the human resources needed? And if you can mention just as a figure, what is the dimension of the financial resources needed for such an approach?
We started in 2009 with a project, in 2010 with the co-financing programs, and we are still running them. The financial dimension is in terms of investment into the objects. I don't have the overall number for all the things, but let's say a few €100,000. It's really not enormous amounts of money.
Few €100,000, yeah.
But what is the needle hole, or the biggest challenge, is to have in heritage aspects really companies that do good work. Because even if you copy a co-financing program elsewhere, but you don't have the companies, or you have companies that do bad work, then the reputation is gone, or heritage is gone. And so that is the challenge, why it is not so easy to copy. And building companies are still focused on easier jobs than heritage. And again, I think it needs an incentive to see that it matters and it brings something for your own business to work in heritage.
So it seems a very good business in this view. Rudy, you want to?
I just wanted to ask. I think with several hundred thousands, you mean the money needed for actually doing some works, but the project itself, with all the people involved, I think it's much more. That would be, I think, the figure we are interested in, because in order to being able to put the money on a building, you have to spend 10 times more money to prepare the spending of money, and so on and so forth. That would be the amount I would be interested in.
The money that the project, how do you call it? Money is 8.5 million for 8 years, but the focus is not only on heritage in the project. So a lot of topics that I left out also cost money, and the combination of that project money is, as you say, human resources and investment into buildings. And as I was showing, there's a lot of money coming also from the city budget into this refurbishment or restoration.
Anyhow, from business point of view, apparently it looks very, very efficient if you think at the sustainability of such an investment. So, summarizing, 5 to 6 years of evolution, effective some hundreds of thousands of euros direct invested, human resources which evolved from probably a small group to involving local resources and creating a kind of a critical mass and coverage for all trades and crafts and knowledges involved, and results very, very close to, let's say, to a critical mass, to a key point when this becomes a habit. This actually produces a mutation into the culture of treating inhabited heritage. Excellent. Let me switch on the local situation, and let me ask the Vice Mayor about the same thing. How close do you think we are from something like that?
Well, we are. It depends, because on this matter we should treat, unfortunately, differently the public owned historical buildings or monuments, in which subject is just about how much money the public administration can spend. And this is, in this year, we have 4 million euros on 3 high schools that are, all of them are monuments coming from European funds. We have almost 7 million euros on the public spaces of the fortress. And in the near future, in the next years, there will be also European funds available of about 32 million euros for the entire region in this in protecting and restoring the historical heritage of this region. This money will go to public buildings, but also to NGOs, if I remember well. So and churches. And, this will be this money will be available from the European funds. The public administration also spends from the local budget on public buildings. There are examples. So how far we are in public buildings? Well, quite far if we are talking about the instruments that we have available. When coming to privately owned buildings, then we are not. I cannot judge on where the level is. Unfortunately, we are almost zero, because the issue is not, the problem is not on the public agenda in this moment. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we are not able to bring it on the national public agenda, which is a pity. And it's a pity for not only for Timișoara, it's a pity for all the cities that have this problem or this opportunity, in fact. And as soon as we are going to be able to do that, I'm sure that things will change. In this moment, according to the Romanian law, we are, I don't know, at zero level, because we are not able to use any of the money that we would like to spend and we would like to use on private buildings if we are not able to put it on the public agenda and to modify the law.
Thank you very much, but let me ask you additionally, do you think the problem is on the local agenda? And if it is there, how can the local agenda influence the national public agenda?
The problem is, of course, in the local agenda, and it will become more and more pressing because when you are restoring for example, the city center and paving and doing all the things that are needed, and this we will finish until the end of the year, then you can see better what beautiful and destroyed buildings you have on the city center. So
on the contrast,
on the contrast, of course, and of course it is on the local agenda. What we are lacking is the instruments to do it. Well, we have now instruments well, in the negative way, in the way of proposing penalties to the people that are not restoring the buildings, but this for sure will not be the solution in the future. The solution will be to adapt the law to the needs of these cities, which needs are the capacity of the public administration to come with money and help the owners, which for sure are not able to do that.
So it's quite an interesting perspective. Restoring the public space may enhance the image and the contrast with the private space, which is derelict or ruined or suffering by contrast.
It already does. There are some owners that took this in their own hands and started to restore it in the buildings, and they look absolutely fabulous, most of them. But this is not enough.
Of course, I appreciate that. Rudi, instruments were mentioned here, and I know that such an instrument, and a very evoluted one, is available. What should be, in your opinion, the next step in order to have these instruments in place and ready to work?
So I will start by by this idea of investment in public, not spending money on local patrimony, but investment in it. And to invest, you need an investment fund, basically. So you need the money to do it. In order to have the money to do it, and to do it, you need the people who pick the buildings you want to invest to. You need the people who follow up the investment. You need the people to make sure the revenue will be there future on. Yeah? So the people who ensure the sustainability of this investment, of you as a public administration and as a local community in your own local heritage. It has also to be said that right now, like Mr. the Vice Mayor said, unfortunately, on a national level, you need a very alembicated system, or it's not possible at all, in our opinion, to make this investment as a local community. So we are in a situation in Romania where basically the national framework forbids local communities to protect their own patrimony, which is quite incredible, basically, and it's reminiscent to what Iris said, a situation when you need an agreement from your capital in order to invest in your own local patrimony. Yeah? We are reminiscent of the situation. It's not as bad as you described it, but basically it's the same way of thinking we still work with. And now regarding the instruments, Timișoara is in a situation right now which is quite I would say funny, but it's not funny at all.
Dramatic.
Yeah, dramatic, because Timișoara has the investment fund. Funny enough, it's not a lack of money, so Timișoara really had assured itself a 5 billion loan from the German side to the KfW project. And it's the merit of the city of Timișoara that it did it. Yeah? It was a follow-up to the GTZ project we had here several years ago, which, by the way, cost for 4 years. I think the budget was 2.5 million at the time, between 2006 and 2010. So, but it's another story. So Timișoara has this investment fund, let's call it like this. Timișoara has the human resources to use that money, because a condition to use the money was to build up an office with up to, I think the maximum was 13 people, but the minimum was 6 people, so there are 6 people assigned to this job. This is a situation which I think very few cities in Romania have, maybe none. Yeah. We talked yesterday, Oradea is doing a great job with 2 people. Yeah. So Timișoara has an office dedicated to the issue of investing in local patrimony and also in living local patrimony, so not only in schools or churches or public space or public objects, but in big private houses with a lot of owners. So it has the human resources to do it. It has the administrative capacity to do it. So it is, these people are paid, these people have jobs, they have salaries, and it has the money available on call, yeah, to do it. And furthermore, it has what you asked me, the instruments to do it. So inside this project, very, very complex set of instruments were developed with everything you can imagine in a great, great detail. It's going from the way the contracts have to look like between each individual owner and the city who's giving the money, basically. It goes to having contracts proposed between the owners and their architects to ensure the quality of works, to ensure the technical assistance, to ensure all the things necessary to make this money spending and investing sustainable. You showed it, Mr. Șpirian showed it yesterday. It's something like this, yeah. So it's really the whole procedure is detailed. So basically you have all the elements in place to spend this money and you have the money. But you cannot spend it because you have a deficient or not very well structured national legislation, which still sees the public interest in a building as being made out of its facade and the roof side, which is seen from the street. Yeah? This is something our law actually says. It's quite incredible. And that said, in order to meet all these things, your investment fund, the human resources you allocated, and human resources for which Timișoara now, I think, for several years pays salaries. So it's a structure which needs to be maintained, of course. And to use your instruments you've built up, also with money, yeah, because it costs, you have to work on them. You basically now need a change in the national framework, and you need this topic, exactly what you asked before, you need this topic to be on the national agenda, yeah, and to become a topic of national interest, basically. In order to achieve that, what you need before, I think, and what we tried yesterday, you need the cities of Romania to say all together,
to raise their voices.
yeah, we need this, it's something we need. And this fragmentation in dialogue with the central ministries, yeah, each city talks on its own channel with the central government, is very, very bad for now, because it doesn't build up a community of cities, and the issues of cities are not seen as a common issue. Yeah. Each city has its own issue with the central government. This is a bad way to do things.
So it looks like a very professional bottom-up process, so assisted process by professionals, but bottom-up.
With time running out.
We rise to the point that it didn't reach the peak, the top, strong enough to produce the mutation in thinking and approaching the culture of ownership, because I think this is the field we are talking about, and which has to be tackled and changed accordingly. All right, so let me go to Stefan and ask him. We have about two problems which may be part of this process. One, I would like to ask you an opinion on the phenomenons, because you've presented phenomenons, of course related to industrial heritage, but I think we may rise the topic to a more general situation. You have with your team organized exhibitions, issued books on the topic, surveying somehow the best and most interesting and creative projects which appeared in Romania. And I would like to know for all of us, what is your opinion in the evolution of this phenomenon, and what is your forecast? And then I will come with the second question.
Okay, I have to be an optimist. Although I have to say that all this bottom-up strengthening of heritage and usage of heritage can be related very much to the crisis. Because before, during the boom, the destruction was very, not just for industrial heritage, for everything. And then came the crisis, money ran out for people owning these old houses in the center or factories. So the big projects all flopped. So there was some interest at least to get some money out of it, and so to leave these young people playing there and doing their games and making culture. And some owners also have seen that this raises actually the value of their property because it puts it on the map and so on. My problem is that I'm not very sure that now that we won't have a boom like before, but there are the signs of this economic development. And what I see is that people are reverting immediately to the old fashion. So I think the main problem is to make a good action and restoration economically valid and rentable, which means that you have to have very simple actions like to be able to access public funding. This factory, Halele Karol, I forgot to mention, is not listed as heritage. And the owner would resist with teeth and claw to have it listed because he knows that the moment it's listed, he can't do almost anything. His freedom is, he can't access funds. So it's not, for people now to have a house listed as a heritage is a catastrophe. It's not an asset. So I think that this is where we should work on, like we discussed yesterday, to be able to publicly fund private property, because there is a public interest because of the public value of heritage. Very small things like you have now tax deductions because you own a heritage building, but if there's a commercial activity, you're not allowed to do it, which is extremely stupid. So this should be changed immediately. So I think we should have just a few very basic, how should I say, actions that could be implemented immediately, and that would trigger a good development. So in this case, I think you just need this legal framework, and which should be placed in a business-like attitude, because otherwise you're going to have the destruction, and you have what you see now is that you have more and more people actively destroying their own heritage houses because they know they can't destroy them officially, so they destroy them unofficially. And you have also this movement of partially listing, which was very popular in the West in the 80s and in the beginning of the 90s, to have a house to say that just the facade is valuable and you can do everything inside it. So all these people are smart enough to see that you can overcome the law in order to do what is economically viable for you, which is at the moment destroy the house and make a new one. And that's, I think, the issue.
You pointed again the fact that we should, the button is at the governmental level.
Yes, as a policy, but it's a sad fact that, as far as I know, there was this a couple of years ago when they changed the law and put all this, how do you say that in English, these cultural directions, which were subjected to the Ministry of Culture. So of course centralized, which is bad, but then they put them under the direction of this not district, how do you say Județ in county department, which made them actually subject to the local political interests and not to the, let's say, national public interest. So the policy up to now is against heritage. It's not for heritage.
Let me ask you some more about this split between the national heritage patronage, let's say, and then the regional or local. What is your opinion? Should stay at national level, or there could be a chance if the local or the county or the region, whatever, may decide?
Well, I don't know if I'm the one to be asked this question. I was always a fan of decentralization, but then I saw that with a lot of things in Romania. When they started to decentralize, they actually made it in a very feudal way, in which you have local
goes even
overlords, which then have even much more power than they used to have. So ideally, I'm against centralization, but the
Maybe
fact
not
is
in this
that
case.
some of centralized bodies are expert named, and then they are not subject to the local political interest. So maybe ideally it should be local people, but then freed from the local pressure. I don't know how much this is feasible. And the law, as far as I remember, it had two things. On the one hand, it had that it decentralized those things, and then it made also easier to take the decision to declassify a building from the national level to the local level. So when you do these two things together, it's clearly that the purpose of this law change was to destroy the heritage, because people had problems with it, they couldn't get rid of it, so they wanted to solve this problem. And I'm very firm. I'm absolutely sure about this.
I understand. And then the second question I would like to ask you is about communication and about the fact, or starting from the fact that you are involved in communication about architecture, urban phenomena, heritage, and so on. What would you think that would be the most interesting tool for communication in case we want to increase the pressure of this bottom-up process together with the local administrations, which will raise their voices and eventually coagulate around this request from the national governmental level to make the mutation in the law? How could this communication, or what kind of communication you see would be more efficient, would be, let's say, viral, or to reach the point of awareness necessary?
I think that at one you should use the actions that are happening there, because people are doing their things that don't have to do with architecture, and you should profit from their communication of those people involved in these actions in order to talk also about heritage. And then also maybe get to a very sentimental way. People don't care about all the heritage, and most people don't care. So to find the stories that sentimentally and nationally and from an identity point of view matter to them. And then like the house of George Enescu, they say, we saved the house of George Enescu. It may not be a great monument, but it is worth of saving. So try to push these levels to which people are a little bit more, how should I say, they are more open to them. And to talk about the good examples, and also to talk about the international success, because this is something that people in Romania, we are so frustrated that every international success is something that gets bloated immediately, be it a game of tennis or something else. And I think that if you talk about the international success of this action and about the international success of these houses, I think it's a general mechanism. It happened with Gaudi in Spain. In the 80s, nobody gave a damn about Gaudi. It was not something that anybody cared about. And then it became famous internationally again, and then it became a local and a national asset.
And now he's almost a saint.
And now he's almost, he's a commercial value more than anything else. And I think that this should be a thing that should be, that you could build upon.
Do you think a kind of, would say, national, more generalized campaign could help or can be built?
Yes, but that we have been discussing, but it's still for me very, very unclear how you should do that, and if you should make the pressure to campaign for the change of the law, or if you should make the campaign with the good examples. I think that maybe you should go both
yeah.
ways. And of course the campaign of why is it also economically reasonable, and why this is an economic asset, and how this brings money. I think this could be the three pillars of the whole thing.
Anyhow, a combined tool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ciprian, you have a special position of being, of course, an architect. All right. So I should continue in English. So you are in the position of being an architect, and in a very important position in every city as an architect, like the city architect. So a qualified public servant, which also, as your presentation did, may measure the phenomenon and realize the evolution in time of the inhabited heritage, and eventually to take actions or to influence. So what do you think could be your message to the city architects all over, or how can you cooperate among you from the same position in order to support that this type of action we are talking about would be successful?
O să-mi cer permisiunea să vorbesc în limba română. Nu sunt un obișnuit al scenei, cu atât mai mult în limba engleză.
Rudy, can you whisper to Iris?
Cred că suntem foarte mulți care din poziția de arhitect șef, care am încercat să facem ceva sau să schimbăm ceva în orașul pe care îl reprezentăm. Eu, unul personal, am făcut foarte multe drumuri la București pentru a încerca să atrag atenția și am fost în Ministerul de Finanțe, am avut discuții acolo. La un moment dat mi-am dat seama că de unul singur a merge la București nu o să rezolve mare lucru. Și atâta timp cât mesajul care vrem noi să-l transmitem nu este îmbrățișat la o scară cât mai mare și el nu ajunge la urechilor celor care trebuie să schimbe și să modifice legislația, cred că nu se va întâmpla. Deci doar în momentul în care vom fi mult mai mulți care spunem lucrul acesta, poate nu doar, și aici nu cred că doar din administrația publică trebuie să vină mesajul ăsta, trebuie să vină mesajul ăsta din partea tuturor celor care au un interes în direcția asta. Și de-aia cred că investiția în clădiri de patrimoniu, cred că nu poate fi contestată de nimeni, chiar și de guvern. Nu cred că o să poată vreodată să zică că nu e o investiție profitabilă sau că nu merită. Consider că poate încă n-au fost suficiente voci care să ceară acest lucru. Trebuie să ne gândim că în Timișoara, până când nu am avut parteneriatul cu GTZ-ul, foarte puțin se discuta despre clădiri de patrimoniu și despre reabilitarea lor și reabilitarea lor corectă și de ce nu e bine ceea ce făceam până atunci. Abia după câțiva ani, chiar de la plecarea GTZ-ului din Timișoara, cred că au început să apară asociații, au început să apară ONG-ul, au început arhitecții să spună că ceea ce se întâmplă în orașe cu patrimoniu nu este normal. Pe de altă parte, dacă tot am vorbit de investiții sau vorbim de investiții, ce aș vrea să mai spun și ieri am discutat în cadrul grupului de lucru care l-am avut, noi în încercarea de a găsi soluții am contactat mediul bancar și bineînțeles am contactat mai mulți, au răspuns invitațiilor noastre la discuții două bănci, Banca Comercială Română pentru Locuințe și Raiffeisen Banca pentru Locuințe, deci două bănci dedicate pe partea de locuire. Și fiind mediul bancar, având alte reguli, văzând oportunitatea, de fapt, în nișa asta.
Au reacționat pozitiv.
Au reacționat pozitiv și au găsit, BCR-ul cel puțin a pregătit deja un pachet pentru reabilitarea, de creditare pentru reabilitarea clădirilor pentru proprietarii privați, pentru că, la fel ca și noi, cred că investiția în clădiri private de patrimoniu, că asta de fapt este discuția, cred că e o investiție profitabilă atât pentru cei care locuiesc în ea. Iar pe de altă parte, tot din experiența biroului care a rămas în urma experienței cu GTZ în primăria Timișoara, și unde avem contact foarte des cu asociații de proprietari și unde cu ani în urmă aceste discuții lipseau, deci asociațiile de proprietari nu înțelegeau ce vrem noi și ce vrem de la ei. Acum cel puțin există, de multe ori vin ei și întreabă. Am auzit că e un birou în Traian care se ocupă de clădiri, ne dau bani. Bine, întrebările încă sunt nefirești unele dintre ele și da, și cred că venim cu schela și ne apucăm noi de refăcut clădirea. Dar practic deja e cunoscut și biroul e cunoscută și informarea. Cred că lucrurile merg într-o direcție bună și cred că în cele din urmă și legislația se va modifica mai devreme sau mai târziu și investiții de genul acesta vor fi multe în țara asta.
Mulțumesc, thank you. I would like to ask all of you, and including the public, the room, to help us to build a list of arguments. Why should the law be changed in order to allow public investment in private inhabited heritage as very short, pointed arguments? I'm opening the list. I have my pen. We have some minutes. Please shoot. Arguments for why changing the law. They could be positive arguments or negative arguments or whatever.
Permit să continui eu? Păi, în primul rând că avem un patrimoniu care trebuie sau merită a fi păstrat și care cred că e necesar să-l păstrăm ca identitatea noastră și a orașelor noastre. Iar schimbarea legislației, odată modificată, practic va exista atât economic un aflux în orașele noastre, atât din punct de vedere al meseriilor care în Timișoara, cel puțin, sau meseriașilor care au cam dispărut în Timișoara și la orice reabilitare de clădire istorică avem mari probleme în a-i găsi.
So identity reasons and business for small crafts. Eugen.
Thank you. What I think that the arguments related to why should we change the legal framework are quite obvious. I don't insist on value and on return of investments, not only financial but also economic, also socially investments. But what I think we should focus on is a little bit on how to change it and what exactly to change it. But I think this was the focus of yesterday morning, but also today's. And I think there is no measure that we can leave outside. Everything is needed, from good examples to something else. But I think that now looking a little bit more focused on who should be more prepared to ask for it, and we look on professional organizations and local administrations grouped in coalitions of cities, which I think is a very powerful idea. We basically look not on professional arguments but or points, but on fiscal issues, financial issues that are related to taxation, are related to investments from local and national funds, and also to revolving funds, which we can call investments from exterior sources. And all these 3 points are key points that will have immediate effect on heritage. I don't worry so much on professional value of advice and act, also not on preparation of crafts, because this goes on. I also don't worry about the interest of people. I don't think that people are nasty towards heritage and stupid, with some exceptions, of course, but generally I think it's a positive idea. And what also people and owners need to know that something can be done. usually I'm also an optimist, and like many of you. This morning I'm a little bit pessimist though. Not only that I have a slight headache from yesterday evening, but regarding to this
With good reasons.
changes of legal framework and financial, I think this is a severe issue because the subject does not exist on the national agenda, and I don't think this is related to a special orientation of the ideology. I think this is a general lack of any knowledge. You don't even have to be corrupt to be stupid. It's just ignorance,
on the contrary.
ignorance and stupidity. You know? Dealing with revolving funds, though, it's a little bit related to corruption, I think, because you cannot use them anymore. They avoid your control on national level. But also on the local level, I think lots of things can be done. Nothing prevents a city of organizing a local department for heritage. Nothing prevents it. You don't have to wait for the GIZ to come and give you money for it. You know? You can do it. You can map your heritage, and for the most, what cities actually lack, I think, the most is communication. You have to involve and communicate things related to heritage, because then you can influence the biggest quantity of investment, which is the private investment in heritage. I think also with revolving funds, with national fund related to heritage, the biggest quantity of money invested in heritage is micro investments of micro owners and investors. And this you can influence locally without even waiting that the law changes. So there is lots to be done, but I think what I would like to see from institutions like ours and others to point quickly out what exactly to change. And I think for this, extra advice is urgently needed on the legal framework and on the fiscal framework. We should talk to bankers, economists, and lawyers.
But I would add, I appreciate your points.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to add a supplementary question about coordination of these actions. Because certainly it's something which comes from different fields, like you mentioned before, from professionals, from public administration, from experts, from, let's say, legal advisors and so on. But who's the coordinator? Who is in the best position to take action in coordination?
Okay, only a few very brief ideas without monopolizing the microphone. I think good contacts are associations of mayors and of cities which are active, and from what we know now, it's a good moment to go through them, and perhaps I would rest with this to focus a little bit the effort. I would even try to use para-national organization like the World Bank. Right now, our ministries are more interested in relating to the World Bank for almost anything than to anybody else. But I think that the list is open. But I would try to focus a little bit on who can bring our message quicker and safer to the ones that can take and should take the decision.
Yeah, please do.
I just said the organizations of mayors, I would think.
I got it.
And these institutions that have influence on the government level. I think the government level is the one we should focus on rather than the parliament, as well the parliament. But as we know, the country is run by the government directly, with a lot of measures, and with a small change in the fiscal system, which they do anyway each second week. We can change something immediately.
All right. Thank you. So, gentlemen, I realize that Timișoara is pioneering in this field by having this instrument prepared, these projects, by having expertise, by having goodwill from the administration. And my question is, according to the suggestion which was made here about the local department for heritage inside the city hall and the public administration, and not necessarily depending on the Ministry of Culture at county level. What do you think, Mr. Vice Mayor and city architect, about this? How can you see this in Timișoara in the near future eventually?
Well, this is almost done. We are not telling that. Well, this is not the name of the structure that we have. It's named differently, but in fact, it works on that level. But I'm just coming back a little on what we've talked before. And in this moment, what is needed, because we don't have the time to involve all the actors and to have a coordination, which should be. But now we have the law in the parliament. The first step of what we should change, it was rejected by the Senate, and it will be in the deputy chamber in the near future. And what we need to do, I think, is kind of mass sending the message to all the parliamentaries, to all the members of the parliament, to all the and everybody should take action in this moment, because if we lose this process, which started in the winter of 2014, then we are waiting again some maybe 2 years, because they will have elections in 2016. So if we are losing this moment, then we will have quite a big problem. So just look at the legislative process. It will be in the Chamber of the Deputies in the near future, and try at least to convince the member of the parliament that I think.
And excuse me of my not enough knowledge on the quality of the law. How do you appreciate the law which was rejected is good enough to support whatever we are willing here?
Well, not for everything, but it's a first step that we've took, and it goes. It's a change of the law. In fact, it's not a new law. It's the change of one of the laws that deals with that, and it will allow the local administration to fund at least the facades, the roofs, and well, all the things that we can see. It's the first step that we can take, and then this will go farther with other changes.
So
of
I think
the
it's sufficient for starting the process.
Yeah. Not for starting, but not for having the best process that we could have.
Okay, so at this point, please allow me to widely open the discussion and to try to focus on what's next. We have identified certainly the urgent issues about the law, about the necessity of having a good carrier of the voice, of the ideas. That's almost clear for everybody on the point where we are. And please contribute with recommendations or any other idea which may help us to concentrate and to go on the best path. Anybody from the room?
Hello. I'm aware of the fact that the historic heritage has to be protected, and it's a pressing issue in Romania, especially talking about the heritage from the 18th and 19th century. But I would like to ask the question or raise the issue that we should raise more awareness also about the heritage from our recent past, especially about the industrial heritage that Romania in general has, and Timișoara has very centrally located sites. So I would like to congratulate on this occasion to Mr. Ghenciulescu for the Carol halls. I think it's a really
for being recent.
Yes. But to take an action on this industrial heritage that has been neglected in the past 25 years, and to ask how what can be done also to make use of the halls, and how to make them profitable, but also very, very valuable, because we tend to neglect industrial heritage because it's too recent, it's too new, and concentrate more on the old parts of the city.
I would like just to, not answer directly. Of course, it's a main issue, and for Timișoara, like you said, it's in very central areas. I would like just to mention that the new land use plan of Timișoara proposes an extension of the list of monuments and proposes an extension of protection for a lot of this centrally based.
Can you be more specific? Which ones? Or?
For example, Cefere, the North Station, for example, the halls, the water towers, I think, were already protected. And also we go into recent, it goes also into recent, but you can see the list completely, it's public, it's on the Primăria website. But I want to give a reason without wanting to make a, how we call it, a competition situation between types of heritage. I want to give a reason why we focus these 2 days on living, on inhabited heritage. And that is simply the fact that it's inhabited. So it's heritage where a lot of people live. In Timișoara, it's a very, very big part of the city, which is built up by this type of heritage. And for now, unfortunately, generally in Romania, heritage is seen only as objects. So very often, heritage is perceived as one object or another. Old church, I don't know, old building, objects. And inhabited heritage, at least in the part of the cities built in the 19th century, is not built out of individual objects. It's built out of whole streets with ongoing facades, which makes it very difficult to pick out one building. And putting, as a city, your money into this inhabited heritage, I think can ensure a greater revenue for your local budget in these areas, because you promote and make business attractive there. These are great areas because they have good public infrastructure, they have streets, so a lot of people go around there, they have a good flow of people, and then you have people living in there. So by putting money into these places, you affect, with every cent you put in, you affect a lot of people at the same time. That's not to be said that industrial heritage is not important. It is for sure, but I think for a city like Timișoara, with 3 main historic areas, which are built like, which can work like city centers, each one of them, it is very important to, and it's a priority to ensure that these areas are attractive, because these areas for now have an old population. Young people don't want to live in these areas. Young people go out as soon as somebody has some money and is young and active, goes out to Dumbrăvița and spends his life in the car for the next 30 years. A lot of people see these areas as being for poor people with bad housing conditions. That's still a problem. So a lot of these houses are not modernized, and this is also a problem regarding the change of law, because we, as far as I know, our proposals now don't go so far as to say it's also public investment if you renew the installations of a house, yeah, water reduction and so heating and so on. But these also are issues if you don't do this, if you don't modernize this patrimony, and if you don't make it livable at modern conditions, it will never be attractive. So that's why also yesterday we talked about, it's not only about restoration and conservation, but it's also about modernization and reusability of this patrimony. And well, these are some of the reasons why I think this issue is pressing for Timișoara in the first place. Of course, it would be very important to have this other issue also in range and in sight.
Iris, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, maybe to pick up your point, what heritage is about. I think, I don't know how much it is the case here in Romania, but in Ukraine there's also a big gap between this scientific research, theory, heritage in the culture ministry, or with, you know, highly educated protectors who look down on this everyday craftsmanship, and what people do with, you know, what we were shown here is the same in Lviv, painting, you know, one part of their facade or something on this self-help level in a way. And of course, the more people just do something, the more the scientific group grows into some space. And I think the approach that is needed is, you know, it's not the saving the world, but it's really to see that heritage is something to do with your ordinary life. And I think what you showed with this program for school kids is something so vital, so necessary, needed to give people a mindset, be it young people, be it older people, through different sources. And I think programs like this going into schools, or like what we have, this Heritage Days, or making public restoration seminars, you know, where people can actually touch what is being done, or been shown what has been done, is something that starts interacting in people's minds. And I think you can put up so many programs, if people's mindset is not changed, then it will not work. And then another topic, nevertheless, you know, just to relativize what we do in Lviv is really just a small starting point. It's not saving the world, and the culture ministry and the programs and so on are far away. So, you know, just to keep it down on the ground. So I agree that it's really necessary to have some, as I said before, tax incentive or something, looking to Germany, to Eastern Germany, which was, you know, after the change in 1989, had also a big deficit in renovation work, or yeah, all the problems of empty housing, really nice heritage, and nobody wanted to live in it, and so on. And people would not have invested if there hadn't been a big tax break advantage. And slowly people followed, or, you know, understood, not only it's yeah, I can save tax, but it's actually something that matters to me. And so the mindset followed, probably.
So I really think that you made a strong point by making dealing with heritage part of ordinary life, which is, according to your experience in Lviv, a very important way of doing that.
Maybe just one point to add, and by starting with one, let's say, door, people actually realize, although they could have realized before, but that they have, you know, besides the front door, they also have maybe a flat door, or they have room doors, or they have floors, or they have other objects, which, you know, they can ask the same craftsman with their own money. And just the follow-up, picking up your point about the local economy, the follow-up contracts that craftsmen get becomes, you know, much more money that was invested in the first place.
I may capture this like, let's say, the front door effect of working with the heritage. Thank you very much. Some other questions from the room. Maybe the guest coming from other places than Timișoara may add some comments on their situation. My friends from Brașov eventually, or others. What do you think? Do we have similar situation? Do you recognize the discussion from Timișoara in your place? Do you think it's the same disease with no, let's say, particular forms here and there?
Yes, as I said yesterday, we were preoccupied in our last years with roads, with asphalt. We didn't have so much attention for the buildings, but I say we as a city, and we as administration, and as citizens, but I think in the last not months but years, this issue were raised almost every time, under the difficulty of having some financing, some public financing on this issue. Well, we seem to have a very simple problem here. We have to solve this issue of having public financing in private property. We have a well-known situation in the center of Brașov. We have the Black Church, which is surrounded by a courtyard. It is a public space, but it is owned by a private institution. It's the Evangelic Church. And they have a partnership with the city hall. They did architectural competition, and well, the project was done. It is authorized. There is a valid building permit, and for about almost 4 years, we are not able to finance this project, which is a central project, well known of all the citizens in Brașov. Everyone's wondering why why we're not able to do this thing, which seems a small thing and obvious for everyone. It has to be done, and we are not able to do it. And we have even decisions by the city council to finance it, and afterwards it was
cancelled or
cancelled, yes, or we had these juridic remarks that it is not possible because of the financial law. So it seems a very small, a very precise, a very simple problem which cannot be solved. So the arguments I can imagine as an architect, probably I'm subjective here, are all in favor of having this financing. I was even thinking a few minutes ago I should change my perspective and be the lawyer of the devil, seeing it from the other side. What does prevent us from doing this simple step? Probably the first thing which comes in mind is abuse. Well, you can...
the devil himself.
Yes, the devil himself. Romania is full of devils. We know that we have this corruption problem, and the private sphere is corrupt. We are all, we the living people in Romania are all corrupt. When you speak of private intentions, they are always, you always expect them to be bad intentions, to have not a public value, but only a personal value for the one which has this interest. So probably we have to change or to demonstrate that we are not, it is not a real issue, it's not a real danger, and to find a clever way, a clever procedure, not to have this, I don't know, a secondary effect as bothering as it can be, and destroy the pure intention of this thought. Well, for the moment.
Thank you very much.
I will leave it here.
Any other opinions from the room? What do you think? What could be your appreciation on the 2 or 3 days of working on the subject? How can we close our efforts for this weekend?
I think a really big step has been made. Since we are here all together, we have the administration with us, the professional body, and also the civic society. I think this is quite a big step. A lot of people came from different cities yesterday to sign this act that is sitting outside and waiting for all of you to sign it. So I'm quite optimistic about this. As long as we all stick to this idea that we need to do something and we keep doing it, I think we're going to be all right in the end.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the guests, and I hope all of us have reached something more than the previous knowledge on the subject, and really hope that we can cooperate together and together with everybody, with all the signatures on this act. Thank you very much for you to organize this. I think I said it before, and I think you are pioneering, which is very necessary sometimes in order to start things moving. Thank you very much for the public, for the patience and contributions. And if we are done for today, let's break it here. Thank you very much for your contributions again.